Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Oh Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hari Bol Hari Bol Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Gaura Hari Jaya Sachi Nandan Jaya Gaura Hari Sachi Nandan Jaya Gaura Hari Jaya Sachi Nandan Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinandan Jaya Gaura. Oh Gaura Hey, Gaura Hey, Gaura Hey, Gaura Hey, Gaura Hey, Gaura Hey, Gaura Hey. Oh Jaya Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radha. Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Radha, Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Radha. Jaya Radha, Gopinatha Radha, Gopinatha Radhe, Radha, Gopinatha Radha, Gopinatha Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh Radhe, 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 Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Ganhavika Giti Hari Radha Vinod Vihari Ju Ki Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishima Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishima Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishima Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimat Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Mahabhagavat Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Arupanuga Guru Varigya Ki Jai. Jai Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namane Gauda Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate. Om Agina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmaya Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gauda Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anapetyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Mayatayo Taravo Vinedustam Sarvabhutam Mulimanatosmi Bhaktya Vina Aparara Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Taranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Vrinde Namaste Charanada Vindam Tavai Vasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vignaya Radhe Tvam Mayamam Tarantikam. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimat Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Vargya, and all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord. My Dandavat pranams to all of you. So we're continuing with our Jaiva-Dharma. You're on Wi-Fi? And it's on public?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're in the first 5 verses of Falshruti. Pritivite yata kata dharma namachale bhagavata kahe sat paripurna chale.
As indicated in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, second shloka, all the philosophies on earth that are celebrated as dharma are utterly deceptive.
So this is the first statement that is going to be appreciated by the devotees reading Jaiva-Dharma, that we are not concerned with dharma, artha, karma, moksha, which is principally what all other spiritual paths, unless we're in this devotional channel, concerned with moksha. This is practically what most other religions are concerned with, being relieved of the suffering. So we've spoken extensively about that. And our chapter at the moment, chapter 17, is about this topic. So we'll keep going. Chale dharma chale kare satya dharma mati chaturvargya tyaji dara nitya prema gati.
One should completely abandon such deceptive dharmas and observe his mind in true dharma. In other words, one should give up the fourfold goals of material life dharma, arth, kam, moksha, and aspire solely for the ultimate destination of nitya prem.
We are in the anugatya of the gopis of Vrindavan because we are recipients of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, who is giving us Braja Prem, Braja Ras. He's giving us this Bhakti Ras. So in the line of Rupa Goswami, we have no connection with these material dharmas at all. Amitva mimam sabrame nija jada buddhi
Nirvishesha Brahma Jnane Nahe Chitta Shuddhi. Those who are deluded identify themselves with matter. That is their error. However, one cannot be purified of such delusion by endeavors for Nirvishesh Brahma Gyan.
Nirvishesh Brahm Gyan is like the desire for moksha. What is the destination of a muktavad? What is the destination of one who wants that liberation without bhakti? If these two want material liberation, and he can get material liberation, he can get material liberation by, he can't actually merge into the Brahmajyoti because the atomic living entity and the infinite personality of Godhead are two contrasting energies, you can say, and they can't physically merge together. But the jiva, he can come into the effulgence of the Lord in the Brahmajyoti. This is the goal of the jnanis. There's a difference between a jnani and a jnani bhakta. A jnani bhakta is someone like Bhishma Dev, or someone like Prahlad Maharaj is a jnani bhakta, and Jad Bharat is a jnani bhakta. They can achieve liberation from matter. That means their whole material identity is completely purified. The five gross elements are purified, and the three subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And then they will come to their chitta, and then from there they can actually connect with their pure spirit soul. And if they're bhaktas, that means they have the seed of devotion to that personality of Krishna. If they're not bhaktas, if they haven't cultivated that, then they're destined for the Brahmajyoti, then they're jnanis. So understand absolutely the distinction between a jnani bhakta and a jnani bhakta means that he has knowledge of Krishna's Aishwarya. That's the gyan that he holds, like Uddhav. Uddhav held the gyan of Krishna's supremacy, Krishna's greatness. Therefore, he's a jnani bhakta. And Bhishma Dev also understood the Aishwarya, majestic aspect of Krishna. So that's what it means. The Gyan is relative to Krishna's Aishwarya. And the Jnani Bhakta, he knows Krishna's Aishwarya, but he knows it's Krishna, and he wants to develop he wants to serve that supreme personality. That's a Jnani Bhakta. And then there's the Jnanis who aren't concerned with Krishna and don't know his opulences, but simply focus on wanting to be liberated. And those people can come under two categories. They can be Mayavads or they can be Brahmavads. A Mayavad is of the conception that ultimately he is Krishna. Ultimately, during his meditation, a light becomes recognized internally, and his own potency is recognized, and he, in his illusion, he thinks that he is now God. That's what a Mayavad is. But a Brahmavad is always worshipping the unknown Brahm. He doesn't know that the Lord has a form, etc., a personality. So he's worshipping that, but he's worshipping is the point. He doesn't think that he's God. So a Brahmavad is worshipping that Brahmajyoti, that effulgence of Krishna, but he doesn't know that it's a personality. But he's still not thinking that he's God. It's the Mayavadis who are the greatest offenders. Therefore, they can commit suicide by merging into the Brahmajyoti. So these are the topics we've basically been going over in the last few days. So just to clarify that Nirvishesh Brahm is like moksha or mukti. After Brahmavadi, he can, like Shukadev Goswami, but my Gurudev has described, just for your interest, that Shukadev Goswami was just performing Leela. He was never a Brahmavadi, because in his previous existence, what was he? He was a parrot of Sri Radhika. So he wasn't a Brahmavadi, but he was acting as a Brahmavadi. But we see in Jaiva-Dharma, Sannyasi Thakur, he's following the path of Brahmagyan. That's the path that he was following. And what was the result of that? He became influenced because he had some sukriti, some bhakti prada sukriti. He became influenced by seeing that devotee chanting and dancing, by hearing, by having that sadhu sangha. That was enough for him to wake up his inquiry into bhakti. And then he goes to Vrindavan looking for the bhaktas. Then he comes to Navadvip looking. Then he finds Premdas Babaji in Godrum. So this is the complete path. So yes, if you're a Brahmagyani, you can definitely come to the path of bhakti because you're inquiring, you're open. But if you're not a bhakta, if you're of the impression that you are that one, because what happens in the yogic process, in the mystical aspect of it, it's like Paramatma feature also. But we're going to discuss this in our chapter, so I'll leave this part of the discussion at that point, but we'll come back to it in a sense in a minute. Ivichitrata-hina hale nirvishesha hoy kala samutalya seha aprakrata noy.
The Mayavadi thinks Sri Krishna to be subject to the limitations of time, such as birth and death, and considers that he is not
That's
transcendental.
the point, because he himself has not recognized his own transcendence, because he himself cannot break free from this material covering without the connection of a bhakta. Understand it very simply. If we consider the topic of love, it's all about love. The spiritual world only consists of love. It doesn't consist of analytical conceptions of trying to uh, um, force our way in. You can't force your way into Vaikuntha. It's only about the loving relationship, which is Sambandha Gyan. And if that love is appreciated, that means love has to have two to love. If it's self-love, that is the Mayavad. If it's only considering with self, and also even Paramatma feature is in the same bracket ultimately, but we'll discuss that in a minute. But the Bhakta is considered with his loving relation. There's a subject and an object. That's the only way that love can manifest. There must be two for love. So the Mayavad, it's only the one. So therefore, he's not considering Krishna's or the Supreme's qualities, etc. This is what the rest of the verse is saying. He's just stuck in his own limited time and space conceptions.
Thus, he rejects Sri Bhagavan's Vichitrata, astonishing characteristics, paraphernalia, qualities, and Leela. Through this vicious attempt, he is left with the philosophy of Nirvishesh Brahm.
Yeah, he's only left with the effulgence. And yesterday we were discussing what are the qualities of the effulgence? Gyan and Vairagya, knowledge and renunciation. And it's clearly described in chapter 13, I think it is, yes, chapter 13, that these are attributes and not qualities directly, knowledge and Vairagya. And that's what makes up the impersonal Brahman. I hope everyone is becoming very, very clear on this topic, because actually at heart, it's incredibly simple. We just need to know these distinctions, and then it's not difficult to understand the whole science of it, so to speak. It's quite basic.
I have a question about meditation to Paramatma. I heard
We're going to come back to this in our 17th chapter.
Okay.
Let's just finish this Falshruti, and then we'll go, because I want to read something from Bhagavad Gita about Paramatma, just to make it clear. Kandigyana hoya dharma ache sunishchaya
prakrita
prakriti hoya
kabu
kabu
aprakrita naya.
aprakrita.
Such base and contemptible gyan.
It's contemptible because it annihilates the personality of Krishna. If you're a jnani, that means you're like a Mayavadi. That means it's contemptible because it's not acknowledging that supreme person. It's only about you. It doesn't have it doesn't have the sweetness of love in it. It's not there. So therefore it's contemptible.
Gyan, which are such base and contemptible gyan, which arises out of an attempt to dismember the divine form of Bhagavan, is only fit to be rejected.
You see that Jiva, these four qualities, what is it? Apralipsa, Brahm, Pramad, and what's the other one? These four defects of man, have you learned them?
Apralipsa, Pramad,
Cheating, etc. So the Jiva, he has this desire to cheat. And so he's trying to even cheat the Supreme Lord. I'm just trying to remember what these...
Brahma, Pramad, Brahm, Pramad, Vipralipsa, and Karnapata.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so this cheating process is always there. We're always trying to cheat. Even Krishna, even at the end, we think we can actually enter that spiritual kingdom without acknowledging Krishna as the infinite. I am atomic, I am so tiny, and Krishna is so great. But yet I want to be like Krishna. That is our error. That is our defect all the way through. With my independence, I'm trying to be like Krishna. And that's the immense defect that we're going to suffer. Okay. Arise. Oh, you read it all, did you? Divine form of Bhagavan is only fit to be rejected.
It is Prakrita, metal stick, and should never be given credence as Aprakrita Dharma.
Yes. Aprakrita Dham means beyond this material world. There's a big difference. Okay, we'll come to our chapter, and we're going to discuss Paramatma now. So your question might just wait a minute. So we're still recapping from page 384. We didn't actually cover much ground yesterday, but we're into page 384, and I want to read this purport again. I'll read this one. The Jiva and the indwelling Paramatma are both reside in the body, like two birds in the same tree. The Jiva is sunk in the bodily conception of life because of his attachment to material sense enjoyment. We've understood that fully. No problems. Bewildered by Maya, he cannot find any means of deliverance, and thus he laments and falls down. When the Jiva has darshan of the other person within the heart, namely the Supreme Lord, who is served eternally by his unalloyed bhaktas, this is the point. He's served eternally by the unalloyed bhaktas. If the bhakta is not serving, if it's not this mad bhaktim, we have this verse, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na sochati na kanchati. This is 1854 of Bhagavad Gita. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na sochati na kanchati. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim. What does that mean? Mad, my devotion to me. Mad means me, bhaktim, bhakti. Mad bhaktim labhyate param. Unless he has this devotion to Krishna, then he's going to go into the impersonal realm. It's saying very specifically that to be liberated from the material coverings is a great great progress in our path of bhakti. But if we don't know what bhakti is, if we haven't had that association, we can still become liberated. Exactly like Dhritarashtra. When Dhritarashtra goes to the forest and he practices Astanga Yoga on the advice of his younger brother Vidura. Dhritarashtra is a very high birthed personality. He's coming from the semen of Vyasadeva, who impregnated Ambalika. But she was so afraid of his horrible appearance, she closed her eyes, so he was born blind. But he was also blind spiritually. So he wasn't a friend of the Pandavas. He was actually against the Pandavas. This is an offense. So what did he achieve by his Astanga Yoga practice? It was very, very intense. He actually was able to ignite the fire to incinerate his whole body, ultimately. But he liberated himself, but he didn't achieve prema. This is what's clearly stated in the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Bhaktivedanta Swami. How could he achieve prema when he was so offensive? So from this example, we can appreciate that all jivas are very, very, very individual. We can't just say that, yes, all Brahmavadis are going to have an opportunity to come to Krishna like Shukadeva Goswami did. We can't necessarily say that all those who are Mayavadis are necessarily going to go to the end of that. Maybe they'll be cut off before they get to the end of that. So we can't make huge blanket statements and saying that, yes, everyone is like this and everyone is like that. It actually depends on your personal, individual swarup with the Lord, ultimately. What is in the core of your heart's desire? What do you actually want? Now, I have to read something from my Gurudev's Bhagavad Gita, which is describing about, because I was saying yesterday how Paramatma feature is not eternal. It is not eternal because when the Paramatma, when Mahavishnu breathes in the universes, then Paramatma is going to go, Kshirodakshay Vishnu will go within the body of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. Garbhodakshay Vishnu will go again into the body of Mahavishnu. So then where will they be? They will be there in a conceptual form. An impression will be there. But when there's no jivas left on the planet, when they've all been incinerated by Rudradev at the end of the Mahapralaya, what is the function of Paramatma? Is to guide the jiva. But if there's no jivas, then he has no function. So where is he? So I'm reading this here. This is from the 7th chapter, 4th verse in my Gurudev's Bhagavad Gita. And it's in the Prakashika Vritti section. He's saying, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes Krishna as saying, knowledge of both my Swarup and my opulence is called Bhagavat Gyan. It is described in this way. I, the Supreme Absolute Reality Sri Krishna, am always situated in my Swarup. Krishna never changes his Swarup. And I possess all potencies, Shaktis in full. Brahm, that's the Brahmajyoti or Brahmand, the entire creation, is only a featureless, nirvishesh expression of my potency. Featureless means it has no personal characteristics. Why? I've already told you a dozen times. It consists of Gyan and Vairagya. They are not personal attributes. They are impersonal attributes. Gyan and Vairagya, saying the same thing, right? It is only a featureless, nirvishesh expression of my potency and does not have a form. It doesn't have a form. It's just light. It has no sat shakti. I explained this extensively yesterday, and I'm just giving the praman today. It has no sat within the Brahman. The existence of this Brahm is based on the conception of negation of the created world. That's like Vairagya. Vairagya is a negative quality.
You said no Shakti.
Huh?
You said it is not Shakti in the Brahman. Or not?
It doesn't.
Shakti.
There's a potency. There must be a potency, but that potency is like of a negative quality.
Because I heard all levels of Paramatma.
It has the chit shakti.
They have Shakti.
Chit, not sat. It has chit. That is the shakti of the Brahman. Chit. And chit doesn't, in the Brahman aspect of it, but the original chit shakti, where the jiva is emanating from, is like the aspect of Krishna himself. That chit. It's still eternal. So there are different stages of the chit shakti, we can say, or different intensities or degrees or percentages of the chit. Within the Brahmajyoti is the chit shakti, which has no characteristic. It has no form. Therefore, it has no sat. It's not sat. The Brahmajyoti has no existence. Paramatma has existence because there's Paramatma feature. Listen. The existence of this Brahm is based on the concept of negation of the created world. That means zero. Zero. Paramatma is also a partial manifestation of my energy in this world. Kshiradakshai Vishnu is manifesting from Garbhodakshai Vishnu, manifesting from Mahavishnu, manifesting from Narayan, ultimately manifesting from Swarup Shakti. So it's a partial manifestation. Paramatma is also a partial manifestation of my energy in this world. In fact, Paramatma is specifically related to the temporary material world. I've just explained that. When there's no jivas in the world, where is Paramatma? Where will Paramatma reside? Paramatma is specifically related to the temporary material world and does not have an eternal swarup. Bhagavad Gita. It's saying it very clearly. And actually in Bhaktivedanta Swami's Gita, it also says the same thing. Paramatma does not have an eternal swarup because it doesn't go across the Viraja river. So those yogis, because it's the yogis who meditate on Paramatma feature. It's the yogis who are meditating on, and a yogi is not like a full bhakta. He's worshipping Paramatma. Why is he worshipping Paramatma? He's worshipping Paramatma. What's his motivation? Is actually to achieve mystic cities. That's why he's performing that. Dhritarashtra was performing Ashtanga Yoga. So he actually became liberated. It's described very clearly when you read that section of the 14th chapter, I think it is, in the first canto. He breaks down the Maha Panchbhutas and then the subtle, the Linga Sarya. It's all gradually broken down. And then he becomes liberated from material consciousness. But because he hasn't developed his bhakti, He cannot get prem. He just remains in a liberated condition. And my understanding today, and if anybody wants to correct me, because I don't actually know the destination of that Paramatma yogi, I'm considering that it must be within this world, because Paramatma feature doesn't cross over into transcendence. There's no place across the Viraja river for Paramatma. So therefore that yogi will go to Janaloka, Tapaloka, or Mahaloka. Those higher, very, very high material planets, like Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is the greatest yogi. He actually makes planets, etc., populates them all. He tested his yogic power against Krishna in the Brahma Vimohan Leela. Do you understand? So it's a very broad topic, but essentially, to conclude on this topic, all the individuals who are on these paths are individuals. So we can't just say, yes, all Paramatma yogis are going to go here or there, etc. It's an individual thing.
Satya Yuga people meditate to Paramatma and go to Narayana, or meditate another way.
If they go to Satyaloka, then like in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, if they get enlightened about the personal form, the best example is Prahlad. He's a Jnani Bhakta. He knows about Krishna. He's actually described in Shantaras, and his great quality is Nishta. He's one of the Mahajans. Great quality. But he didn't know who was Bhagavan. My Gurudev has described many times that Bhagavan could have manifested as a mosquito, and Prahlad would have worshipped him the same way that he worshipped Nrsingadev. But how did Prahlad worship Nrsingadev? Did he offer him a glass of water? Did he think Nrsingadev was a person? Did he fan him? Nrsingadev has just killed thousands of demons. He was probably quite hot. He probably would have liked a glass of water or a fan. But what was Prahlad Maharaj's concept? He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead with so much Aishwarya, he doesn't need anything from this world. He's totally Atmaram Aptakam. This was his conception. It wasn't a strongly personal connection. You understand? Therefore, he's described as in Shantaras. Of the 5 different types of bhaktas that are described in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, the first, the lowest type, is Prahlad Maharaj in Shantan. The next is Ambarish, then Hanuman, then the Pandavas, then Uddhav in gradation, and then the gopis of Vrindavan, then the Brijvasis, etc. That's the gradation. So Prahlad sits on the bottom there. That Shantaras is one of the rasas of Vaikuntha. In Vaikuntha, there's 2.5 rasas, Shantaras, Dasyaras, and a little bit of Sakyaras. I hope you get the picture.
This Sakiras, how it's possible in this Narayana? So can he embrace?
All in Shantaras, practically, because they all think that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If you read Brihat Bhagavatamrita, you will understand that. When Gopkumar went to see Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha, he was wearing his cowherd dress. Oh, no, you can't wear that here. Put some puckered cloth on. Just wear your white cloth like this. And don't sing these sorts of songs. We all sing these very beautiful Aishwarya glorification of Krishna, not like the Brijbasi songs. We don't sing like that in Vaikuntha. You understand? So he wasn't very comfortable there.
I don't understand how it's possible Sakirasa and Vaikuntha, even little more, little bit. How it's possible?
Shantaras,
No.
not Sakya. Little bit of Sakyaras, like Uddhav. Uddhav was the greatest friend of Krishna. So when Lord Narayan is with Lakshmi Devi, then Uddhav can be a very confidential friend of Lord Narayan. But there's very, very little of that. It's a fractional. But someone like Uddhav perhaps attained that confidentiality with Lord Narayan is like the king, and no one comes really close confidentially to the king. Not even Lakshmi Devi is so close. Lord Narayan doesn't even have a mother and father, so there's no Vatsalya ras. So there can be no conjugal ras, Madhurya ras. You understand? Okay. I think I have told more than is necessary because people perhaps just will get confused. But we should know that all the information is there if you ask the questions. So I'm not going to speak about it anymore. I'll wait until you ask the pertinent question, and then I'll just respond to that. Otherwise, it'll just go on forever. But I want to read on from here. You can read on from here what we've read yesterday, and we can read it again. This shloka states, you can read from there. Rajanath.
Rajnath. This shloka states that when the jiva sees the worshipable Lord, he becomes free forever from all
That's
anxieties
Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, yes.
and directly perceives his magnificence. Does this imply liberation?
Hmm.
Babaji. Liberation means to be released from the clutches of Maya. Only those who have the association of saintly people attain this liberation.
Yes, so that's one type of liberation. I said before that there are many types of, every individual will have his own rasa with Krishna. I've already explained that. And they have their own um, fulfillment of their bhajan according to their own desires. So there will be degrees of liberation, etc. It's not all one. It's all actually very much diversified. Okay.
But the real subject of research is the glorious position that one receives after attaining liberation.
Now that's the main thing to consider because we are under the guidance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his gifts of Bhakti Ras. So this is actually where we're going. We're not going into all this other appreciation of the liberated states, etc. But I'm just including all this just for our background knowledge. Okay.
Muktir hit vanyate rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 10th chapter, 6th sloka. The jiva, in his original constitutional form, is a pure servant of Krishna. When he falls down into the darkness of nescience, he has to accept gross and subtle material bodies. Liberation means to abandon these extraneous forms completely and to be situated in one's original spiritual swarupa.
The last part is very important. You see, it's not just being liberated, it's to be situated in his original swarup. What is his original swarup? Jiva?
Jivara Swarup Krishna Nityada.
Yes. Jivara Sarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. That's his original position of a servant of Krishna. But what type of servant are you? Are you in Dwarka, Mathura? Are you in Vrindavan? What type of servant? That will depend on your association. But read on.
This half shloka explains that liberation means to abandon these other forms and to be situated in one's swarup. Attaining one's constitutional position is the necessity for the jiva. The work of liberation is complete the moment the jiva is released from the clutches of Maya. Then, so many activities begin once he attains his natural constitutional position.
Mhm.
This is the fundamental necessity of attainment, mool prayojan, of the jiv. Freedom from intense misery can be called liberation, but following liberation, there is another stage in which a person achieves spiritual happiness, chit sukh. That state is described in Chandogya Upanishad 8:12:3. Evam evaisha samprasado samak charirat samuttaya param jyoti rupam sampadhya sevena rupena abhinishpadayate sa uttamam purusham sa tatra parayeti jakshan kridan rama ramamanaha. When the jiva achieves liberation, he transcends the gross and subtle material bodies and is situated in his own non material spiritual state.
That's naturally when you've eliminated the material elements, then you're back in your original spiritual state.
Complete with a spiritual effulgence,
Mm.
he then becomes transcendently situated.
Yes, he then, after that moment, that's when he actually has the opportunity to either go to Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan, or even in that state, he can choose to go to the Brahmajyoti. Even in that state, he can, if he hasn't appreciated bhakti.
In that spiritual atmosphere, he becomes absorbed in enjoyment, bhog, activities, krida, and bliss, anand.
Yes, that's the fruit of attainment.
Vrajanath, what are the symptoms of those who are liberated from Maya? Babaji, they have 8 symptoms which Chandogya Upanishad 8.7.1 describes as follows. Ya atma pahatah papma vijaro vimrutyur vishoka vijig vijighas vijighatso pipasah satyakamah satyasankalpah so nivishtavai. The liberated soul has 8 qualities. He is freed from all sinful activity as well as the addiction to sinful activities that arises because of the nuisance of Maya.
His freedom from his impious impressions. They've all been incinerated.
He is not subject to the miseries of old age. He always
That means internally, he never has to become debilitated in his consciousness. I can remember when my Gurudev was very old and external symptoms of old age were showing, obviously, because he's going to leave that old body. It has to break down. The organs, they stop working. But he told me, he said, my mind is like crystal. My mind has not become old. So understand this. This is the nature of the pure devotee, of that liberated soul. But the conditioned soul, his mind becomes old. He becomes forgetful. He becomes, so many different things happen. But the pure devotee, he doesn't subject himself to that. He stays aloof always from the bodily condition. It's like when my Gurudev was leaving his body, one astrologer was telling us there were many malefic planets attacking his body because it was time for him to depart this world. But my Gurudev, he could see on the chart, my Gurudev was sitting aloof from it all, like a yellow sun, just observing the deterioration of his body. He wasn't in the bodily conception. So that's the liberated condition.
he always remains young and fresh and has no tendency to decay.
Internally, it doesn't mean externally, because we see all the various Mahabhagavats of the past, they all demonstrated this gradual external decay because the body will break down. But the internal consciousness is as youthful and as strong as when it was in its full blown maturity. Makes no difference.
Maharaj, like whatever we are speaking is like once they've renounced those 2 bodies, the gross and subtle body. So this doesn't relate to those 2 things at all, right?
Doesn't relate to the gross or subtle body, yes.
Because liberation means you have to
Means you're beyond the gross and
yeah.
subtle body, yes. The Stula Sarya and the Linga Sarya, yes.
He never comes to an end or dies. He is never morose. He has no sensual desires. He has natural inclination towards serving Krishna with no other desires.
That means he's spiritually evolved entirely. That is the nature of spiritual evolvement. That is the meaning of bhajan when you're fully immersed in only wanting to serve Krishna.
He has natural inclination towards serving Krishna with no other desires, and all of his desires become realized. These 8 qualities are absent from the Baddha Jeev.
Yeah. So when you're a Bhadda Jiva,
You'll have all these
you
things.
have all these coverings. But when you're a Nitya, Siddha Jiva, you're liberated from that. Our chapter title is The Jivas Free from Maya. So this is really the topic here. Carry on.
Vrajanath, it is said in the Dashamula Shlok, the good fortune of the Jiva who is wandering aimlessly in the material world arises when he meets a Rasik Vaishnav who relishes the nectar of Hari. One might raise the objection that one could eventually attain Hari Bhakti by performing pious activities such as Ashtanga Yoga and cultivating Brahma Gyan. Babaji, these are Sri Krishna's own words. Na rodayati mam yogo, na shankayam dharma evacha, na swadhyayas tapas tyago, neshtam neshta purtam na dakshina. Vartani yagnas chandamsi तीर्थानि नियम यमः यथावारुन् यथावारुन्दे सत्संग सर्व संगापोह hi mam. Sri Bhagavan said, I am not controlled by those who perform yoga, study Sankhya philosophy, perform religious duties and pious activities.
Sankhya philosophy is this philosophy of
Niti.
analyzing the aspects of the different elements and so on, and thinking that you can actually attain the supreme by that Sankhya philosophy. Krishna is saying clearly that he's not controlled by that.
And pious activities, study the Vedas, perform penance and austerities, practice renunciation or accept sannyas, perform sacrifice and welfare activities, give donations in charity, practice fasting and other vows, perform yajna, chant confidential mantras, go on pilgrimage, and follow all the rules and regulation for spiritual life.
Many are very confused about this because they spend their whole life performing all these activities. But if the objective is not to connect with Krishna in service and love, then all of these practices are actually useless. This is the same understanding of what is the function of our sadhan bhakti. If our sadhan bhakti is not going to be focused on bhav bhakti, what is the objective of our sadhan bhakti? It will be something material in this world. I'll want something from this world somehow or other, rather than that connection, that bhav connection in seva to the Supreme.
However, one who accepts satsang, which destroys all material attachments, can control me. How much can I say? Ashtanga Yoga can slightly satisfy me indirectly, but Sadhu Sang controls me completely.
Beautiful.
It is also stated in Hari Bhakti Shuddhodaya 8.51 Yasya yat sangati pumso manivat syat sa tad gunaha swa kularadhaityo dhiman swa yutanti eva samshrayet. Just as a jewel or crystal reflects the color of the object with which it is in contact, so a person develops qualities according to the company he keeps.
Paramount important. If we associate with Rasik Bhaktas, this Svajatiya, Snigdha, Ashraya, they are of the same mood. They want the same conception. They've understood basically what is Mahaprabhu's gift to this world. He's giving us Swabhakti Shriyam. He's giving us the opportunity to attain service directly to Radhika in Manjari Bhav. So if you're with devotees who have full nishta and faith in that, they have full faith in Rupa Goswami's teachings, they have full faith in the teachings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, then your sadhu sangha is very strong. That's called swajatya. And then snigdha, if those devotees are friendly with you, they're comfortable with you, that is snigdha. And then ashraya, you always have the feeling those devotees are more senior to you. Even if you happen to take the senior role, you're thinking still, oh, this devotee is actually more senior to me. This devotee can offer me some strength in some area. You're always having that humble impression. Even if you're the most senior devotee, you're still thinking that these others are more senior to me. You still have, like the Uttam Bhakta, He's always thinking that everyone else is an Uttam Bhakta. That's their vision. You understand? Swadhyatya, Snigdha, Ashraya. These three aspects of association. Okay.
Therefore, by keeping association with pure sadhus, one can become a pure sadhu. Thus, the association of pure sadhus is the root cause of all good fortune.
Mhm.
In the Shastras, the word nissanga means to live in solitude. This implies that we should only live in the association of bhaktas. Nissanga means to leave all other association and to take the association of bhaktas. Even unintentional association with saintly people brings good fortune for the jiva.
Gata Sukriti. Even we don't know. But if we just happen to be in the temple when a pure Vaishnava is there, even if we don't make any connection, that Agada Sukriti will actually support our progress.
Sango yah samaster hetur asatsu vihito dihah sa eva sadhusu kruto nihasangatvya kalpate. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 23rd shloka, 23rd chapter, 55th shloka. The association of materialists is the cause of bondage in the material world. Even though one may not know that this is so. Similarly, association with saintly people, even if it happens by chance or unknowingly, is called nihasanga.
So it's very subtle. You can um, be, your progress can be checked if you're in the wrong association and you may not even know it. So that's why we have to have this knowledge. We have to have this clear understanding of what is the supreme prayojan. If you don't know what the supreme prayojan is, you may end up anywhere. We really have to study this Jaiva-Dharma deeply. Go on.
It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 5th chapter, 32nd shloka. Naisam matis tavad urukram grim sprasati anartapangomo pagamo yad artaha mahishyam padarajobhishekam nishkinchananam navrinita yavat. The lotus feet of Urukrama, who is glorified for his uncommon activities, destroy all anarthas in the heart. However, those who are very materialistic cannot be attached to his lotus feet until they smear their bodies with the dust from the lotus feet of great souls who are absorbed.
That means doing great service to those sadhus. If you do, like Narad did, Narad was performing so much seva to those sadhus. So therefore, he was like smearing the dust from their lotus feet on his body. And what was the consequence? The result? He attained complete connection with Krishna in transcendence.
Lotus feet of great souls who are absorbed in Bhagavat Prem and who are completely freed from material attachments. And Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 48th chapter, 31st shloka states, Na hi mayani tirtani na devamrich chila mayaha te punanti urukalena darshanad eva sadavaha. One was purified by the holy places where rivers such as the Ganga flow and by the stone and clay deities of devatas only after rendering them reverential service over a long period of time. However, when one has darshan of Shuddha Bhakta, is purified immediately. That is why Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 51st chapter and 53rd shloka also says, Bhavapavargo brahmato yadha bhavaj jnanasya tari achyuta sat samagaha sat sangamo yari tadaiva sat gatau paravreshe tvai jayate matihi. O infallible Lord, the jiva has been wandering in this world of birth and death since time without beginning. When the time comes for him to live this cycle of life and death, he associates with your Shuddha Bhaktas. From the moment that he achieves this association, his mind, his mind becomes firmly fixed on you, who are the soul and supreme shelter of the surrendered Bhaktas, the controller of all and the cause of all causes.
Very good, very good. We discussed all this the other day in that video that wasn't recorded, about Durvasa Rishi and
Amrish.
Ambarish, yes. And when he goes, Aham Bhakta Paradino Yashvatantra Ivajuja, Narayan is saying directly to Durvasa, I cannot stop this Sudarshan Chakra. You have to go back to that devotee. He's saying these devotees are as close to me as my heart. He's saying like this. This is how Krishna thinks. Krishna is relishing sweetness of this quality of love and affection, which I've said before. It seems love and affection are the English translations of it, but the word in Sanskrit is much deeper, prem. He's relishing these relationships of prem, principally. Krishna is relishing bliss all the time. The highest bliss for Krishna is when he's associating with the gopis, the premi gopis who love him so intensely, and especially Sri Radhika, who has the most affection for him. That's why he wants to be with Radhika most of the time. So we understand this quality. So his devotees, Krishna, he's saying that I am nothing without my bhaktas. He's completely attached to his bhaktas. So this is Krishna's mood. So if someone is offensive to his bhaktas, like Durvasa was to Ambarish, then Krishna cannot even help that devotee. That devotee has to go and apologize to that particular bhakta that he offended. Mahaprabhu was so strict on this with Devananda Pandit, for example, and Gopal Chapala, this other devotee who tried to offend Srivas Thakur, became like leprosy. So many examples. Krishna, Mahaprabhu cannot tolerate offenses against his devotees. And contrarily, if we are friendly with his devotees and we serve his devotees, then so much mercy from Krishna will actually pour down on that bhakta. Let's read a bit more.
Baba, since time without beginning, the Jiva, who is eternally bound by Maya, has been moving in the universe, taking birth according to his karma, sometimes as a deva, and sometimes in the various animal species. From the time that he attains the association of saintly people, because of his past pious activities, Sukriti, he fixes his mind very strongly on Krishna, the controller of all.
So he may associate with a saintly person, but if that saintly person leaves, and then again he goes back to associating with not saintly people, he can lose so much of that Sukriti. That Sukriti is there, but he will stop realizing it. He can go back. We have seen it. People who have come to saintly personalities and then they've drifted away, they've gone back into the material world and they completely become covered over again. So they've lost the opportunity. So if you've had the fortune to associate with a saintly person and he's given you sanskar and sukriti on this path, then you must continue that path to retain that tremendous potency of association. We always have our independent choice. Always we have independence. If independence isn't independence is the nature of the jiva. It's the swabhav of the jiva. The same as Krishna has independence. We have independence. So we always get the independent opportunity. Even there's examples of devotees practicing for so many years, 50 years, 60 years, and even then they can become distracted. Even in the case of Jad Bharat, he was at the stage of bhav, and yet he became distracted. He didn't have association. So in any stage we have to take it very seriously all the way through. We can never think, oh, I've had association. Yes, now I can. If we have any desire for this material world's pleasures, then we know we have lost that vision of purity, of progress for the, because the spiritual soul has no attraction to matter. So if I'm finding myself having attraction to matter, it means I'm far away from my spiritual identity. So now we've reached the place where we reached 3 days ago. So it was a long topic, and I'm very happy that I discussed all these different aspects of liberation. My personal conclusion came today was to realize that it's a very individual path. Every single person we mention, every single sadhak has their different um, journey, so to speak. We can't try and put everything in the same package and say, yes, all those who are just gyanis are necessarily going to merge into the Brahmajyoti. There are some gyanis who may be pushed back into the current of bhakti. There are those gyani bhaktas who, by association, can actually, their swarup can be directed towards Madhurya Dham. So there is distinction here on every single individual. So anyway, I think we had many things to think about during these last 3 days or so about liberation, etc. So we'll conclude this chapter of Maya. There's still quite a few more pages to go. A lot of information, a lot of nectar. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jaiva-Dharma ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bevacha, Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.